Welcome, Warrior parents. This is the parent meeting 2020 track. As you're noticing, this is a very different format than what we've used in the past. We've usually done it in one location. As the group has grown, trying to fit well over 100 parents into a room seemed near to impossible, not to mention taking all of you away from your families for an hour, hour and a half. Would be difficult, but please give us feedback on this, whether you like this format, whether you prefer to have it in person, whether, it's good during the weekdays, weekends, combined with a practice like after practice or during practice, or whether you prefer to do it some other time. Of course, we're always open to your input, whether it be on this or anything else. But with that, we'll get started. As some of you will note right from the beginning, is a lot of this will be very repetitive to what you saw in the initial meeting, those 15-minute meetings that we had during the uniform sizing day at the pizza place. But rest assured, we're going to get into a lot more detail than I was able to there because of time constraints. Plus, there is sections that are new and much, much more expanded, like training, for example. We'll get into a lot of detail. So those of you that are interested in philosophies of training, how we're approaching it, even the science behind running and coaching it, we'll get into that here. For some of you, you may not care, and that's okay. You can skip over that, and that's the beauty of being online this way. You can just fast forward through that. And that goes for anything else. You could also, of course, rewind and go back and look and make sure you heard things correctly. The only thing we can't do, as you'll notice at the end of our agenda here, is a question and answer period, obviously, because this has been pre-recorded. But we'll open up an entry in our Facebook page, post a video there, and then have people respond with any questions you have regarding the that were covered here. Or again, if it's a little more directly personal to your child, talk to us one-on-one, to any one of the coaches, and we'll answer those questions. With that, let's get started. Coaches and staff, again, this is David Rojas. I'm the head coach. Assistant coaches, Coach Aguilera, who is working with the Jaguar group, Coach Coppola, that's working with the Eagle group, Coach Dominguez, that's working with the Monkey group. We have two junior coaches, and they're really the only distinction here is they tend to be younger, not as old as the rest of us. Coach Lila and Coach Angel. Lila is focused on the dog group, and Angel's kind of been our floater, going from group to group, helping out where he's needed, and more recently, a lot of the Eagle group and helping out with their runs since they run outside, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the future here. Of course, last but not least is our team manager or team mom or both, Lisa Salinas, and she's part of our parent support, which we are very fortunate to have tons of that, and always open for more help, right? So speak to Lisa and how you can help. I'm sure she can put you to work. There's a lot of work to be done there. As you notice, we have a lot more coaches, but not a lot more Lisas, so we can use more help there. USATF membership. Hopefully this is all well taken care of, but if anybody has not done two things right off the bat is one, register your kid for USATF, which is different and distinct than the registration for the team, right? This is something that you pay $20. It's good for the whole year, not just one season. So it's all through 2020. Both this track season and the cross-country season. This is not paid to us, so they'll give it to us. This is done online to the USATF organization, which is the broader national organization. Your Olympic athletes that go to the Olympics. In fact, the Olympic trials are coming up. They all come out of the USATF organization, so it's a very, very large organization. But they also cover our liability insurance, which is incredibly critical for the survival of the team. So that's one. But once you've done that, you also need to submit either directly yourself to the Southern California USATF's office or to us that we can send it in for you, whichever way you prefer, some sort of age verification. Usually a birth certificate works great. And that's to make sure your child is in the right age category when they compete, especially those that are, trying to make regionals and nationals and so on. And again, we won't cover too much of that since it's a little repetitive. Shoes, uniform, and gear. This one we'll get a little bit more into. So first of all, running shoes. Kids should all have running shoes, and I have noticed and been meaning to mention this, so I'll do it now, is some of the kids don't. They're not running shoes, they're sneakers, they're Vans, there's something you would wear for like CrossFit or just basically sneakers. Kids, it's not a matter of whether or not they will get hurt by wearing those shoes. They will eventually get hurt. The more they run on that, the more the foot is not landing correctly. It's not absorbing enough of the, if you want to say, the punishment and the shock, and they eventually are going to get hurt. And being hurt is never fun in any sport, right? So our sport's very different, right? There's not a lot of contact type injuries, but there is a lot of overuse injuries, and that's just by running and running and running. but more important by running on the wrong surface, the wrong shoes, in the wrong fashion, things like that. So if they don't have actual running shoes, you don't have to buy super expensive ones. You know, if you're to go to Big Five, ask them for a pair of training running shoes. Um, Best bet though is to go to something like Snail's Pace, have them watch your child run and find the right shoe for them. And it's different depending on something called pronation, which is how the foot, basically pivots or turns as it hits the ground. Normal people move inward towards the center or towards the arc of the foot, but in a very medium kind of way. If you overpronate, meaning you really collapse inward, for example, that's how I am. I wear support shoes, so there is running support shoes. There's neutral shoes for those that kind of have a normal one, and there is some other type of shoes that are different when people like underpronate, but that's rare, especially for kids. We don't tend to see that. But again, the people at Snail's Pace or other good established running shops will be able to fit them correctly. Once you do that, I will share the secret, and then please don't tell Snails I said this, but once they fit you correctly, you know what shoes they're supposed to be wearing. You can probably find them online, like on Amazon or something a little bit cheaper next time around. They may not be the latest and greatest models, but be a lot cheaper. So just something to keep in mind for the future. Racing flats or spikes. You might have seen some of the older kids or kids that are a little more experienced, changing from their training shoes into something we call track spikes. And in cross country, it'll be flats. And basically, it's a much lighter shoe. Believe it or not, these shoes are ounces. They're not weighed in pounds. They're literally ounces. Very, 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 very light. The material on them feels like paper. The idea is less weight. They can run a little faster. They also have spikes in the track season that grab onto the track surface and kind of propel them along the way a little bit more. Now, I will tell you, the difference is not massive. We're talking about in a 1500, maybe 3 seconds difference. Maybe on the long side, 6 seconds difference. It's not huge. It's not required by any means. It's something that if you want to invest in your child and your child's kind of committed to the sport, absolutely do it. If you're not sure if this is the first season for them, I wouldn't do it, especially if they're younger. I would say 9, 10 years old. After that, look into spikes and flats. Before that, have them run under trainers, protect their feet, see if they're going to really stick with it, and then you can go into getting spikes. And again, we'll post more information about different options out there that you can use. Uniform order day, this is a little outdated, right? But orders are all in at this point, or should be all in. For some reason, someone still doesn't have a uniform. It's either one, you haven't picked it up. Hopefully it was ordered. So please do right away. Or two, you never ordered it. Please speak to us right away because we may have some extras. Not sure why that would be the case unless you're brand new. But let's get that taken care of. Old versus new, kids can wear old uniforms and new uniforms, meaning people that are returners from last season will have the old uniform. By next season, it will be mandatory for everyone to wear the new uniform, so make sure that you focus on that in terms of decision, right? Either buy it now or buy it next season, but at that point, we need to be all with the same uniform. Warm-ups, the thing with warm-ups right now is orders are all in at this point, or should be. We're having a lot of issues with the vendor in terms of providing some of the back order items. Looks like part of it's coming on the 3rd, March 3rd, which would be a little after this recording. But there is, I believe, the small youth pants will not be coming in. And the date is very, very far in the future. We're still figuring out what to do, but we will be talking to you. I'll post more information on the email on Sunday and probably talking to those parents to decide what they want to do, if we just cancel outright, if we just wait on them and that'd be useful for the end of the season, next seasons, and so on, or what you guys want to do on that. I don't know what our options yet. We're looking into that with the vendor. Fair gear, sweatshirts, t-shirts, team things. A lot of this is for parents, but also for the kids. Again, orders are out as well. We may do one more order of that in a month or so. We'll let you know if you're interested in ordering. It's always nice to give support to the team while we're out there. You can take a look at what everybody else bought, see if you like it, and we'll order some more later on. The next one is rollers and golf balls and sticks, and some of that might not make any sense to you, so I'm actually going to take a little, I apologize for my voice, it's already going. I'm going to jump out of full screen here real quick and give you guys an idea what I mean by rollers. So not a rolling pin, so don't use the same thing you use for baking. Something like this is probably your closest thing. Sometimes they're just simply like a white foam, very, very cheap. You can get them for $15, even $10 online sometimes. These are a little more expensive, maybe 25, 30, because they have kind of these trigger points, if you notice there. But they're great for kids, and we'll begin to bring some of them and use them at practice and show the kids how to use it. But if they have their own, it would be, to their benefit. The other one is kind of a hand roller. These are easier to carry around, like literally in their backpacks, travel, things like that. And they kind of use two hands and roll it across their muscles. None of this should be done to the point where it hurts. And the idea is to relax the muscle, loosen the muscle, make sure that there's no knots, they're not, overly tight, and they can, one, perform well, and two, avoid injury. So that's what we mean by that. All right, let me go back to this. Last but not least, light, which is very quickly not going to become an issue. The time's about to change. It'll be light during all of practice, but for now, there's been, Eagle group's the only one that goes out, but lights were necessary there. During cross country, we run into the same situation, but really only for kids who run out. It's an issue at this. All right, communication. Favorite topic here, right? Facebook, and I know I sound like a broken record, but if any of you have not joined our Facebook page, and I still know there's a ton of new parents who have not, please do so. And actually, I'll tell you the truth, I've been negligent to post a lot of stuff there lately, but a lot of our coaches do informational stuff, motivational stuff, pictures, even videos, stuff that's directly related to what the team's doing and stuff that's not, but it's all related and stuff you can show to your kids. But sometimes it's very, very critical, timely items. We may be at a meet and God forbid somebody left their keys in the stands, and we'll post it on there. Hey, somebody left their keys. You'll be able to check on there very quickly and come back and grab your keys, and different things like that. We may be a change of venue. That morning we find out that something happened to a track and we've got to change to another high school. They'll let us know and we'll post it on there. It's the quickest way of getting the word out. So hopefully everybody can join. If you're not on social media, prefer not to be, just make a fake account. Don't put your name, don't put your family's name, don't put any pertinent information, just create an account, call it, running parent number 23 and use that. Weekly emails, same thing there, super important. Every Sunday we'll send those out. I'm going to say every Sunday without fail, but every once in a while, in the year, maybe 2 or 3 Sundays I miss and I send it out on Monday or something like that. It usually will go out in the morning, but I'll try to post on Facebook if I'm running behind for different reasons. For example, we may have a race that Sunday morning, so I'm not going to send it out in the morning. We may have be waiting on some information I need to add. I will add that in as I get it and then send out the email. But I'll try to keep people informed of that. If you don't get it by Sunday night, something's wrong, right? It's in your spam. Something went wrong with the email, or I never sent it out. And so check up on that a lot. All the information for the week and of the upcoming weeks will be there, kind of all consolidated in one. All right, text. And really text, phone calls, Messenger for Facebook. I'll tell you this, the best way to get a hold of me is going to be a text message to my 949 number, and you'll find those on the email there, but it's 949-337-0526. Phone calls work okay, but I'll be honest with you, I get so much spam phone call these days. I mean, tremendous amount, and I can explain later why that is, but I've had that number for 22 years and I've used it for work and home. So half the time, if I don't recognize the number, I won't pick it up. So text works better. I even if you say, hey, can you please call me? I will call you as soon as I see the text message. Messenger, I don't really use. Not to say that I won't check it, but it may be 4 or 5 days before I notice that you sent me a message there. So if it's urgent, please don't send it on Messenger. I'm not going to be able to reply very quickly there. What else? Team talks after practice. These are important. I'm sure if you've been at practice, you've noticed we almost always get the kids together, talk a little bit, sometimes a lot, about something we did at practice, something we want to inform them on, prepping for the next race. So we'll go through all those things there. And yeah, just kind of bear with us. I know sometimes we go a little long, but those talks are important. More important than that is come and join us. So this is definitely not a team where we're like, okay, parents stay over there, we're going to talk to your kids. No, parents come over here, we're going to talk to your kids. 2 reasons. One, obviously, so that you retain the information that they're retaining as well. and especially because of their age. And two, so you get a feel for what we're trying to accomplish with the kids, and you can help us with that. Or, just as important, if you have any concerns with what we're saying or how we're saying it, please talk to us, right? We're always very open to feedback, and if we need to make adjustments, we absolutely will. Um, One-on-ones. So this is if you as a parent want to have a conversation about your child and either how they're being trained or how they're performing in races or practice or even behavior, things like that. Definitely, ask us. We really don't want to do it right there in front of everybody else, right? Let us know when we can set up some time. It could be over the phone, more than likely, but or after practice, we'll take a quick walk and talk about those things. And again, we're always open to that. And talk to any of the coaches, whoever you feel comfortable talking with about those things, and vice versa. We may do the same. We may ask to talk to you about some behavior issues we'll see in practice, things like that, and you can help us out with that. Social media, we are on as a team, right, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So if you're on any of those things, find I think on the email I have the information on there. Find us, follow us, retweet or whatever it's called. But get the word of our pictures and stuff we do at the meets out to everybody that you can. Part of it is honestly just getting the word out. Part of it is kind of celebrating the things that the kids do and the performance and all the hard work that they put forth on the team. All right, keep moving forward. I'm going to drink water here. Parent support for runners. This one's huge, right? There's so many things you already do for them, and we're going to ask you to do a little bit more. But some of these I'm sure you do very naturally anyway. Obviously, getting the kids to practice and doing everything you do for the team is a huge, huge help. Always has been, and I've said it once, I'll say it again. Um, the amount of parent support that we've gotten since we started the Warrior program has been overwhelming compared to what I've seen in the past. Just the participation, seeing so many parents at practice. I know part of it's because of the age group and so on, but it's wonderful to see that. And our success is hugely based on the parent support we've received so far. So please continue that. And these are just a few things. Again, like I said, most of this you already know, but some of this may be a little different, right? Attendance to practice is huge, right? A kid will not succeed if they're missing a lot of practice. They'll succeed more if they attend every practice. That is critically important. That is number one, right, before we get into anything else. Attendance to races are just as important, right? We need to get them, if they practice really hard, have them kind of get their reward, which is going out there and racing and improving their times, winning medals, etc. Bonding activities, whether it be a pizza party, whether it be a movie, a pool party, whatever it is. These are important too. I know it doesn't seem like it, and it seems like, okay, well, that's not running, coach, and how is that going to help my son or daughter be a better runner? Even though running seems to be a very individual sport, it really isn't. It's tremendously based on the support that these kids give to each other. And the closer they are, the more they bond, the more they get along, the more support they have out there when they're racing. And it really goes a long way. And we've seen this year after year, not just here, but at the high school level and other. Hard work over natural talent. This one is massive. And you'll notice this, parents, and some of this may be your kids, right? We have kids that come in with a tremendous amount of natural talent and ability. They may never have run before. They're already, running times much faster than other kids. And that's just life, right? Some people are kind of built for certain things from an early age and have, skill sets in that way. But I will say I've seen it many, many times when naturally talented kids waste their opportunities, right? And hardworking kids continue to work hard year after year after year, month after month, and eventually catch and surpass their peers that had all that natural talent. So we are very big on focusing on hard work, not focusing so much on the natural talent. Now, that doesn't mean that if your kid has a lot of natural talent, we're not going to focus on them. That means we're not going to emphasize that. We're going to emphasize the fact that they're working hard. If they're working hard, great. If they're not, we're going to try to push them on that, because then if you combine hard work and natural talent, well, now we're talking a whole different level, right? We're talking nationals and scholarships for college and things of that nature. So, but it's important as a parent for you to, focus on the hard work that they're doing, regardless of their natural talent they may or may not come with, and make sure that they're proud of the work they're putting into this, because it's hard. It's not easy, as we all know. Running's not an easy sport. PRs over winning. A lot of these kids will want to, like, hey, coach, put me in a slower heat so I can win it. And I don't. I will normally put them in something that's a little more challenging, races in which I don't think they can win. And they may surprise me, right? But in many cases, they're not going to, but they're going to run a little harder because they're with harder competition. What we're focused on is their time. Are they improving their time from the previous time? And that's really what we're concerned about. Winning, sure. And once we get to regionals and so on, and we're moving up through the postseason, winning is what gets you to advance to the next level. But in the meantime, it's times. That way all kids can focus on their PRs. Not all kids will be able to focus on winning. Um, Long-term goals, make sure that kids are not feeling like, okay, this week I got this time and the very next weekend I need to improve it. I need to break it by 30 seconds. That's not realistic to begin with. Honestly, even from week to week to improve that much, if at all. But in a month or 4 months or 6 months or a year, absolutely. Huge improvements can come from that if they're focused long term and they know they have small stepping stones to get there. So that's really important. Leave strategy to coaches, parents, and you've all been great and super respectful of that. But if we have a kid run a certain way, know that it's a part of the strategy long term, right? We may have to actually have them run a way that isn't successful on purpose. Just have them learn that lesson that you don't go out that quick, or you don't go out that slow, or you don't run behind this person, or you don't run in lane two. In part of it maybe us experimented a little bit. What does work better for your son or daughter? So we will make some changes, but if we have them do something and then we find out the kid doesn't do it because mom or dad told him to do something else, it doesn't work very well, right? And it kind of disrupts the ability of coaches to perform, and in turn, the ability for kids to perform well as well. Plus, it confuses them. So, if you have any concerns about strategy or how we're running the kids or training the kids, please, again, super open to that. Talk to me, talk to the coaches, and we'll kind of work it offline. And then together, as kind of a united front, we'll go to the child and say, hey, we're going to try this next time. And we'll do that. And again, we're not only open to listening, we won't just listen and kind of buy your time that way. We'll listen, and if it makes sense, we'll make some changes. Absolutely. 90% of people respond to positive feedback. And this is some study, which I wish I could find it. It's some old study that I read a while back, but they did some study with both pre-adolescents, teenage years, young adults, and even with older adults. And on average, 90% of people respond to positive feedback in anything. I mean, we're not talking just sports or running or coaching. It just tends to work better. You're doing a good job. The proverbial, hey, good job, works much better than saying, why are you running so slow? That's horrible. You need to run faster. So, there's exceptions to that. There are some people that actually respond better to that. In fact, my son claims to be one of those people when he ran both at high school and at the collegiate level. I don't know if that's true. I think some people like to convince themselves of that, but in either case, there is a small percentage that do. But for the most part, majority, by far and large, of everyone and of your kids will respond better for positive feedback. That's from coaches, from parents, from anybody else. For the most part, we'll try to stick to that. Every once in a while, as your kids get older, we'll give them the positive feedback. Hey, you did this great, but we're also going to tell them, hey, there's things we can work on, and this is what we need to work on. But we're never going to tell them, oh my God, you did horrible, right? Last but not least, parents, again, and I know a lot of you do this already, is sign up to help out, right? When there's events going on, even if we forget to ask, talk to Lisa, see how we can help out, pitch in, bringing a thing of ice, bringing some food, coming up early to set up, whatever it happens to be. It's a huge help, especially as the team continues to grow. It becomes harder and harder to manage that. Races and schedules. So this we'll get into a little more detail here now that hopefully it makes a little more sense. This is an older schedule that happens to be on the slide, but it'll still give you the same idea. So the main thing is that you have the day, the date, that's self-explanatory, the event itself for the race. Notice that we have pizza parties in here, we have picture day in here, other things that are not specific to actually a race, but the races are in here as well. Location, some of these are TBD because they haven't announced it. So make sure you look for your updated schedules to come in the email and also on the website. The website we always keep updated. So every time we send you a new one, it'll be updated on the website. It's honestly the best place to look at the website. So you're not confused as to, wait, when did he send the version 4 versus version 3? It's whatever's on the website is the most current one. It's got the time on there. The one I want to talk about is the all runners question mark column. That one will tell you whether all runners should be there to participate or whether it's a selected few, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So all obviously means all, right? So things like the uniform day and the picture day and pizza parties, that's always will be for everybody. The all comers were for everybody. But like if you look at 3-7 Long Beach Sprinters, which is coming up in a week or so, that one it says selected. So what that means is that we as a coaching staff will select the kids we take. And we have a criteria that I'll show you in just a second here based on time that they've run in the 1600, whether or not they participate in both the Long Beach Sprinters and the Pacific Shockwaves race on 321. And then later on, it'll be also the Imani and the Pasadena Running Roses races as well. If you notice, all those say selected. But they'll have some opportunities between now and then to improve their running, improve their times, and qualify. So well, before I show you that, the last thing, oops, is if you look here at the bottom, it says qualified. Unfortunately, my slide thing came up here blocking that, but it says qualified. That's for the USATF Southern California Association Championships and the rest of the postseason. That's all qualification based. But keep that in mind as you notice the difference between selected, which we choose, and qualified, which is chosen by their position or their time at a USATF level. And let me explain this. I'm going to exit out of this real quick. And here's our qualifying times. So if you notice, this is the age groups. Now, one thing about age groups, which I know I've been asked a lot, and believe me, it's confusing. And at first, that didn't make sense to me, but now I get it why it's done this way. If your child will turn 7 or 8 in this calendar year, meaning all the way to December 31st, so they could be 6 today, but if they're turning 7 on December 31st or before that, they're considered a 7-year-old and are in the 7 to 8-year-old group. If your child is, 12 today, but they're turning 13 on December 12th, let's say, they are considered a 13-year-old, and therefore they run in the 13 to 14-year-old bracket. So hopefully that makes sense, right? It's whatever age they will be by the end of this calendar year, at the end of 2020. So with that, you can look up the age group your child is in and whether they're a girl or a boy. And we can look at column B and column C. Column B is the selected times. So for our calendar, those 4 races that are selected, the kids have to have broken this time, improved this time in a 1,600-meter race, right? And we can adjust this for the 15, but if they ran a 15, that means they probably already qualified, so it shouldn't be an issue. We'll also make some similar column related to the 5K that's coming up in early April. They can use that as a qualifier as well. But basically, they have to be running within a certain range. And remember, I think I've mentioned this before, but the reason we do this is not to keep kids out of it. But at the beginning, when we first started, we'd bring everybody to these races, regardless of age, ability, and so on. And what we learned very quickly was that kids were getting lapped, not just once, but sometimes twice during a race, to the point where the race organizers were pulling them off the track, and they weren't even able to finish the race and get a time. Or if they were in dead last place. It wasn't a good experience for the kids. They kind of came out of there feeling bad. And that's not what we want, right? We want them to enjoy running, want them to continue running and continue improving to the point where they can compete at that level. And for newer kids and younger kids, it simply is impossible right away. It takes time. Running is not a sport that you're going to become great at it overnight. And again, there's always that exception, right? You can always point at that one kid, it's like, oh my God, first day they were amazing. But the majority are not, and it takes some time. But I can point you to dozens and dozens of kids that when they started with me, in fact, I'll give you an example, were not very fast. In fact, they were considered quote unquote slow, went on to be incredibly fast runners. And there's a girl, I'll name her by name because she knows I told her I will tell the story over and over again. She was a 9:54 miler, not as a 7-year-old, not as a 12-year-old. As a 14-year-old freshman high school girl, she ran barely under 10 minutes for the mile. She went on by her senior year to run a 5:32 mile. So for someone to just give up on that and say, oh, this person's never going to be fast is incorrect. And in fact, funny thing is, if you look at our times for our kids, the majority, almost 99% of our kids are faster than she was her freshman year in high school. So you can only imagine what that can mean. Again, hard work versus natural talent, right? She didn't have the natural talent, but she had the work ethic, and it paid off in the end. So with that being said, our selected times are in column B. So if your child meets this time, and now these are hard times. I've made them a little easier. It used to be 8, now it's 8:20 and so on. But if your child is at 8:21, they will not be selected to go. So, and we changed this from 8 already, so it's already 20 seconds slower to give more possibilities. So I just, and again, you're always welcome to talk to us about things like that, but I can't really continue to make exceptions over and over again because 8:21 gets in, so what about the 8:23 person? What about the 8:20? And if I let the 8:23 person in, what about the 8:27 person? It's a very slippery slope, and it doesn't work out well. So these are hard limits. If they break these times, they will go. If not, they will not go. That doesn't mean we don't care about them. Doesn't mean that we don't want them to improve. We will have a time trial during practice in which they will have a chance and opportunity to run in an environment that's going to work better for them. They'll still continue to improve, and they'll eventually qualify and be able to run at these. So those are the selected times. The USA Association qualifying times, this is to make the actual championships for our region, or not even our region, but our area. And for that, these are the exact times they have to run this year. We'll take a moment there to take a look at those. They range from a 651. Now, keep in mind, this is for the 1500, which is 100 meters less than the 16. It's 3 3/4 laps. As we start competing at the USATF level, they are international distances, so they don't run the 16, they run the 1500. And so our kids will run those. And again, those are much stricter. These is for the championship races. So they have to run these. And if you notice, even though it's 100 meters less, it's significantly still faster than our selected times. But if they meet these times between now and then at a USATF meet, that's very critical. And we'll explain more when I get back to the calendar right now. In fact, I can show you that because I have the calendar up here. So when we talked about the third and fourth selected races, the Imani and Pasadena running roses, that's where they'll qualify for. They need to run those time at one of these two meets. There is a third option, which I don't have on the calendar. If somebody's very close and we need to take them to another meet, we will. I'm hoping this is enough so we don't over race them, and then we take them into the post, which will start up here. Right? But they have to have met those times here to gain these qualifying times. Continue doing the postseason. After that, it's all about being the top in this race to qualify for the regional, being the top number in that race to qualify for nationals. For nationals, it's only the top 5 that move from regionals to nationals. That is incredibly difficult. If we have one kid go this year, I'm going to be ecstatic. We have a few kids that have a chance, but we'll see how the season goes and how well they perform. But these are super, super high caliber. And just so everyone's aware, the Region 15 and even our Southern California Association, basically the area that we are in, is by far and large the most competitive, most difficult area to run in the whole country. A lot of our kids who will struggle to try to make nationals, to try to make regionals this year, you put them in any other association in the rest of the country, they'll be the winner of that region. So that's how much better this region is. They have national record holders, national champions running against our kids in this region. So anything they do, even coming close to making it to regionals and nationals, we should be very proud of that accomplishment. Right. Let me go back. We were. So races and schedules. That's it. Nutrition. Hydration, perfect timing as I take another glass of water here. 8 glasses a day. I know that seems crazy for some parents, and for some of you it probably doesn't. I know I personally struggle with that, right? I have to kind of force myself to drink enough throughout the day. I'm sure some of you do as well, and some of you it's super easy, right? Kids, same thing. Some of them, they're going to find it easy. They drink a lot of water. It comes natural. Others don't. And we really, really have to push them on that. Believe it or not, this is some study they did on this too. I think it's like something ridiculous, like 67 or 68% of all children are chronically dehydrated through their childhood. That's insane. And then to try to put a chronically dehydrated child into a race is impossible to get good results. So and what chronically dehydrated means is that you could drink very little water for the entire week, right? Just here and there, and drink sodas and other stuff that doesn't hydrate you very well. And then the 3 hours before a race, you could drink a ton of water. It doesn't make a big difference. It really doesn't. It'll just bloat. You need to be regularly hydrated and not chronically dehydrated. So that's very important. Not just right before the race. Food, balanced meals, no carb loading for parents. You know, some of you may be marathon runners and do a lot of running on your own. You know, we do the whole like, yeah, let's go get spaghetti or pasta the night before a big race, a marathon or so. These kids are not running marathons by any means. They don't need to, eat excessive amount of carbs, but they do need to eat healthy, balanced meals on a regular basis. The night before a race, I would avoid any heavy red meats, anything super greasy. The meal before the race, meaning in the morning for breakfast, or if it's an evening race, for lunch, needs to be light. Not a lot of dairy products, not a lot of citrus, acid type products. Definitely no red meats, nothing like that. But just something that they don't feel hungry. Their stomachs feel full, but not excessively full, and basically to have some fuel to run on. No dieting. This is capitalized for a reason. Some of you might have seen the recent news in the last, 6 to 8 months about excessive, even beyond promoted, almost forced dieting that a lot of collegiate coaches and professional coaches had or athletes, especially their women athletes, do in the sport, in our sport, the sport of running, in order to perform a little better, right? They would get them down, at their quote unquote race weight. And there is a such thing as race weight, and of course, logic will tell you that if you're lighter, you'll be faster on your feet. But these kids, especially kids, and really any runner, adult or otherwise, should never be dieting. We burn a ton of calories by running. If you eat healthy, if you eat normal amount of food, you'll find that kind of that ideal weight. So yeah, some of your kids, you may want them to exercise so they lose a little bit of weight. They might be a little overweight and you're concerned about that. Maybe the reason why you put them on the team to begin with, but have them do that through exercise, not through dieting of any form. And again, eating healthy isn't dieting in my book. Dieting, what I mean by dieting is limiting calorie intake, going through like intermittent fasting and, eating only certain types of food. There's all kinds of fad diets out there. Don't do any of that. Have them eat healthy, reduce a little bit of the amount, focus them on exercise, and they'll be fine. A lot of them will simply grow out of that as they continue exercising. Iron levels. This is one that absolutely is a recommendation only, but iron levels, I will tell you, scientifically play a huge role in athletic performance, especially in endurance sports like running. Iron levels, by that I don't mean you should go buy a bunch of iron pills and start giving it to your kids. By that I mean you should go to your doctor, have your child tested, and the next blood test specifically ask to see iron levels because they're not always included in those tests. Now, you will note that normal iron levels, your doctor may say, hey, your child's fine, they're normal. But normal for a runner, it needs to be a little higher than the normal for an average person. And if that's the case, and they're kind of barely normal, they're probably pretty low and borderline anemic when it comes to runners, which will affect their performance significantly, especially in girls, especially as they get into the kind of the preteen years, it becomes a bigger issue. So again, recommendation only. If you want to talk to us in person in more detail, we can. But you should get your child tested, especially if you feel like as they exercise more, as they get a little older, they seem more lethargic and tired all the time. It could be because of iron levels. And again, for runners as opposed to normal people, yes, I do mean runners are not normal people, but we like to say that. But again, an option there, and there is liquid iron and there's pills. If you take liquid iron, it tastes horrible, but it absorbs into the system much easier. If you take pills, they don't absorb very well unless you take it with something like orange juice. We won't get into a lot of those details, but if your child is kind of in that situation, talk to us. If they're already chronically anemic for health conditions or other reasons, then it's more of an issue. Please talk to us about that then. We want to make sure they're okay with that. All right. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go back really quick. Because I don't have it on here, but I'm going to mention something. I see kids with the Gatorade, and I know we can't have Gatorade on track. That's besides the point. I mean, that's super important, right? We reminded the parents, please, no Gatorade on the track ever for any, even if it's a quick sip, it needs to be done on the cement. We get into a lot of trouble. We will lose our school privileges because of that. But outside of that, none of the kids, even I would say, even the Eagle group, maybe the Eagle group, right? Because they're running up to 6 miles right now at practice. They don't need Gatorade. Water is more than sufficient. If you really think about it, kids that are just new, like dog group that's running, 2 to 3 miles during practice, they're burning maybe 400 calories, maybe, at the most. And one of those big things of Gatorade, that's probably about the same, so like 350 calories right there and there. You're completely supplementing everything, and they don't need that level of electrolytes and so on. So, yeah, not a big fan of excessive amounts of Gatorade. It's tons and tons of bad sugar for the most part. The electrolytes can be gone other ways through natural foods. Having had a banana after practice, healthy meals again. Again, after a big race, like for our kids, that would be like a 5K, and they just finish it and they're exhausted and they want to have a few sips of Gatorade. Absolutely, right? But to have it on a regular basis, not necessary. Right, practices in groups. We talked a little bit about this, but just to reiterate, we got dog, monkey, jaguar, eagle. Dog is for a lot of our new kids. We had a few of our new kids and older kids within, kind of our newcomers into the group, into the program, move up to monkey. Big difference between the two really is that dog tends to be for all the new kids, the very, very tiny kids. Practice is a little shorter. They obviously run less mileage. Our emphasis and focus is on making running fun, period. Any improvements, any accomplishments that come out of that, awesome, but it's extra. We really want to make sure they can, we can focus on making that fun, right? And they're enjoying it. If the success at the end of the season in dog is going to be that these kids come back, right? Come back and continue running for us. So that'll be success. Everything else is a bonus. Monkey, we now start talking about times, right? And focusing on, hey, I want to get a PR, which means personal record, also uses PB, personal best. And we talk more about that. Hey, what did you get in your last race? Are you going to try to get a PR? And the kids start, using those terms and being proud of the fact that they got a PR. Coach, I got a PR. Mom, dad, I got a PR. So this is good. This is good for them, right? But it's still not excessive amount of running. We're not pushing them to the point where we're like, come on, you got to do. It's very much is positive reinforcement, getting them to feel good about what they're doing. We're not focused on the competition. We're not focused on other runners. Very internalized for them. Practice will get a little longer as well as they begin to run more. Jaguar, really between Monkey and Jaguar is where they make that transition to more what we call competitive run. Now there is a little bit more about, hey, we want to beat some people, right? Maybe it's people on the team. Maybe it's another team. Maybe it's, I don't know, mom and dad or brother and sister. But we do start talking about that. So it's not just about PRing, placement, how well they do. They're training to win now. They're training to really improve their times and be able to qualify and be selected to go to invitationals, things like that. So it's really about establishing a competitive mindset. So we do a little bit more talking about those things and kind of training them in that way, not just physically. And of course, they begin to run more now. We're getting into like 4 or 5 miles during practice now. Do a little bit more drills. They'll do planks and other core strength exercise, things of that nature. Eagle is our most competitive group. Absolutely, this is the group that's getting ready to transition into high school. We're talking about making, not just getting a PR and maybe not just winning a heat of a race here and there, but advancing to the championships, the association championships, regionals, and the nationals. We are talking about what do we need to do? What does it cost to improve, to train hard, right? How much work does it take? What are you willing to put into the sport to get something out of it? Really beyond just a kind of average competitive mindset, we want to make them stronger mentally, so they can focus during a race and during training. These are the kids that we will. If they miss practice, we're going to ask them, hey, what happened? You weren't here on Monday. We do expect them to be here every day. We do expect them to make every single race. We will be a little stricter with them, right? If they're, if dog, for example, if they're walking, we're going to run up to them and joke, you'll see me joking around with them, trying to get them to run. With Eagle, I'm not going to do that. I will yell across the field to say, why are we walking? Because it's a different mindset, right? And so we do that. And again, when all this goes, always open to feedback from parents on how you feel about that. But the idea is we progress them little by little to the point where they go from enjoying running to being trained to compete, right? And little by little. All right, and of course our practices are at Cal High, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5:30 p.m., but I think you all know that at this point. And keep going. Won't spend a lot of time on this, but you would have noticed all the things that we do, and here it is. You could always kind of take a look at the slide, pause it here when you need to. The lunge matrix that we do every time before every race, before every practice, that's a warm-up. It's done to straighten the legs, straighten the hips, and more importantly, it's part of a warm-up, but it's also to make them stronger to avoid injury. And so you'll see this quite often. They do a warm-up usually, right? Some laps, anywhere from 3 to 4 laps to warm up, kind of warm up the muscles, loosen up. You'll see them do leg swings after that, and then they'll get into their normal workouts. For some groups, it's getting right into their run, which is their longer run of the day, or getting into some sort of workouts. And you'll see them do speed workouts very soon. So a big note on that. Now, I won't talk too much here, but in a few slides I will. There's a reason why we haven't started speed workouts, and I'll explain that, and we will very soon. But we'll get into form drills. You'll see them do like the mini hurdles and the ladders. Some of that seems a little silly right now because some of the younger kids struggle with it. But it's at the very least, we're getting them to lift their legs. A lot of kids have a hard time running with higher knee extensions. They have to keep everything low to the ground. They're kind of shuffling. We want to avoid shuffling. So we're at least getting that out of it. For others that understand it a little bit better, the mechanics of running over those mini hurdles begin to get better form. And so that's the reason why we throw those in. We do that a lot at the beginning, then we kind of don't do them as much as going into later parts of the season. Core X, something we haven't really started yet, but we will, but it's going to be with selected groups. We will start doing core exercises, strength, weights we have not gotten into yet. We will only with Eagle this season. This is the first time we've done it, so we're going to try it out. It's going to be very, very light dumbbell type weight. We're talking 5 pounds, things like that. Myrtles, you will see all the groups doing it. You've already seen that, and most groups are progressing through learning the whole routine. They need to know how to do that. This really protects. It's a cool down, but it also protects. It makes their hips much stronger and protects them from injury. So it's a very important routine. It's a good way to finish up and kind of unwind from the workouts of the day. So you'll see that that should happen after practice and even after races. I mean, if they come up to you in the stands and haven't done their myrtles, is something they should definitely do before they go. We'll try to do it together as a group, but if they're in a hurry, have them do them right outside the car before they get going. All right. Oh, and by the way, these links, and we'll post these from time to time on Facebook, right? But these links are all, videos or information on each one of these type of drills that we have. Myrtles and lunge matrix, there's actual videos on our website. You can go into the training section, pull those up, and the kids can watch the videos at home and they can practice and make sure they understand how to do them correctly. Training gone wrong. I want to talk a little bit about this, and this, as you can see, I'm still kind of adding to it as we think of more things that we see. Um, this is important for everyone, especially those of you that know about running, understand it a little bit more, maybe even have your teams compete for other teams in the past, or you competed yourself. So this might make a little more sense for all of you, but first thing is too much too soon, right? A kid who hasn't run or hasn't run distance before, we can't throw them into doing 5 miles a day. They're going to get hurt. They're going to get burned out. It's not going to be fun. They're not going to succeed, right? So we need to gradually build that up, and we will. I mean, trust me, we'll get up. Like I said, Eagles doing 6 already. They'll be doing 7-milers, in a month or so. It's plenty of mileage at this age. We see, quite honestly, some of our teams that we compete against, putting kids through 7 days a week of training, doing 30, 40, 50 miles of running a week. It's excessive. And I will tell you, it will yield results very, very quickly, right? You put a kid, especially a light, 70-pound kid into running 50 miles a week. In the short term, they're going to improve very quickly, right? They're running twice as much as many of our kids. And they will succeed in the short term fairly well. They will eventually get hurt and or burned out, and they will not succeed. And by the time they get to high school, they will not be competitive in any way, and most of our kids will have passed them up by then. That I can guarantee because I've seen it, and I can introduce some people to tell their own personal stories of how they lived through it in their childhood. The other one is too fast, too soon. The speed workouts, and like I said, I'll get into the details and the science behind this, but we have not introduced speed workouts this season, and we won't any other season until at least a month and a half into the season. The reason for that is because you do speed too soon, and I should have pulled up the video because it actually would have been kind of funny. But for any of you that have watched the movie Braveheart, if you remember the scene in the battle where they have the horsemen coming towards them and they made these long, 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 very long spears that they have on the ground and they're hiding them underneath grass, and they're waiting for the horses to get close enough so they can pull them up and the horses will slam right into them and they can stop them. You remember the scene where Mel Gibson is yelling, "Hold, hold," and they hold and they hold right to the very last minute, and then they kind of pull up the stakes, and it's very successful for that battle. Same thing with speed workout. We need to kind of hold and continue building our base, and I'll explain what that means in a little bit. And then we get into the speed workout, and then we see a very quick improvement for the kids if they build a good base first. So that's the reason we don't start right away. You will see other teams that we compete against. They have them do speed workout year round. They have them do speed workouts at every single practice. I actually was shocked to hear this, but every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, whatever, they run speed workouts. That's not even heard of at the collegiate or professional or even high school level. And yes, it'll yield incredibly fast results for races like the 800 and the 1500. And in the short term, the first 3, 4, even the first season, they will do incredibly well. But they will stagnate. They won't perform well. They will stop improving after a while if there's no base. And of course, they get injured and burnt out, which is the bigger issue. Short-term gains instead of long-term success. Kind of mentioned that already. By that, we're not into that, so we're not going to, shortchange your kids in the long run, right? We just to make them do well for us, right? And then they go off to high school and do horrible and never have a chance of getting a scholarship, right? We want them to do good there so they can get a scholarship and go to college. So we're preparing them, and if that means they run 10, 15 seconds slower for us, but do twice as much better in high school because we prepare them the right way, then we will. One of the reasons why we don't do coaches by age group is that reason alone. And what I mean by that is that if I had a coach only for the 8 and unders and another coach for the 9 and 10s, another coach for 11 and 12 and so on, each one of those coaches, to make themselves look good, would push everything on those kids during that age group so they can perform well on the short term. And then after them, they move on to the other coach. They don't care anymore. Like, I got what I needed out of those kids. I don't need to worry about them. We have coaches that are by, kind of performance levels, regardless of age, and they really see the success of the kids as they're performing. And we keep in touch with all our kids that graduate from our program, even go see them race sometimes. Sometimes they come back and visit us at the banquets because we want to see them succeed later on. Performance focus, motivation. It's one of those things where obviously, these kids that are really want to train and compete, they're going to be motivated by their performance. But if that's all we do, it really falls short, right? There's so many other things that we can celebrate about what the kids are doing, their hard work, their dedication, their leadership, and so on. And we want to be able to do that as well. All right. Let's get into some of the training stuff here. And looking at the time, this is going long, but luckily you don't have to sit in a room while I'm doing all this. You can sit at home while you're listening and skipping through things. Endurance. So these are the different systems. I like to say there's 6 systems that we train. If you talk to other coaches, they will tell you there's only 5. And I'll explain what I mean by that. I've always had the 6 systems, and I hold very true to that. And these are the 6 that I believe we train, or we should train, right? We don't always train them at all age groups because it doesn't make sense. But as they get into high school and collegiate levels, we do. Endurance, super basic, simple one. This is going out there and how long can you run for, right? Not how fast, just how long can you run for. And so by doing, the longer running and increasing their running little by little, they're increasing their fuel storage, the efficiency of how they burn fuel, meaning the carbs in their body and so on. And so a lot of the kind of long, continuous running that you see them do at a slower pace is for that reason. And for that reason, you may see them and say, hey, coach, my kid's going really slow. My kid's faster now. Yes, they are at races. But right now when they're training, they run on average 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes per mile slower when they're doing their quote unquote long runs as opposed to when they run the mile in a race. And that's good. If not, they're not training the right system. So, and we'll talk about what that means. So that's done at a slower pace, but it's continuous and they're building endurance. Aerobic threshold, something other people call tempo. The idea here is to push the line for aerobic levels. And what I mean by that is that our bodies, when we run slow and long, run aerobically. That means that you're getting enough oxygen in order to run. For those of you that are running like a sprint, for example, they go anaerobic. But you can go anaerobic for a very short period of time. That means you're not getting enough oxygen for the effort you're putting in. And so you can sprint for 100 meters, maybe 200, maybe 400, right? And then you begin to die significantly, right? Because your body is running in oxygen death, basically. So aerobic threshold training specifically pushes that line of where the aerobic ends and the anaerobic begins. And so those are called tempo runs. Those are called aerobic threshold intervals. We'll get into those a little bit later. I'll probably only be using those with the Eagle team or Eagle group at this point. Those are a little bit difficult to execute correctly. They're hard on, physically on the kids, but we will train that system as well. VO2 max. This is intervals. So when we get into speed workout and you see them doing, to some degree, the 400s, but more like the 600, 800 meter repeats, 1200s, which we really won't do at this age. We'll do them more like in high school and college. Those are VO2 max, and that is increasing the percentage of oxygen that you use. So our bodies, when you take a deep breath in, believe it or not, you're not using all that oxygen. And the best example to show you that is CPR, right? When you're trying to save somebody's life and you're giving them CPR, you're blowing air back out that actually contains oxygen. All the oxygen your body did not use is coming back out and going directly into the person that you're saving the life, right? So what we want as runners, what we want to do is use more of that oxygen. So we train the VO2 max to increase the percentage of oxygen that's used in our body, by our bodies, right? So you'll see those in interval sessions on Wednesdays when we start doing speed workouts. Speed endurance. So at the very bottom, you'll notice there's pure speed, and that is literally top end speed. How fast can our kids run? How fast can they move those fast twitch muscles in their legs? And that we do need to build, not just for the kick at the end of the race, but it makes running more efficient, right? Even for longer distances. But speed endurance is the ability to say, how fast can I run for what amount of distance, right? Meaning I can sprint at top speed for maybe 60 meters, and then you start to slow down, believe it or not. That's about as much as the human body can do, 60, 70 meters. But can I run a 400 at a pretty close to that top speed? Yeah, many people can. Even though they're still slowing, they still can hold it. But how long can I go for 600 meters? And you'll hear us talk to the kids about their finishing kicks. every kid here can run 100 meters super fast, right? They'll get to that last straightaway and they're pumping their arms and are going as hard as they possibly can to the finish. And that's great. We want to now challenge them to do 150 meters, maybe 200 meters, maybe 300 meters for some of our older kids. And I always tell the kids, professionals, a lot of times will kick from 600 meters out, a lap and a half on the track, and they can sustain very high speeds for that time. But we need to build speed endurance for that. Power. Power is the one that many coaches will argue that's not a component of training. I disagree. Hill work is incredibly important, and unfortunately in our location we're at, we don't have a lot of hills to work with. But we will do, squats and other things to increase the power in the legs and the muscles. And what power basically does, it's great for cross country for running hills, of course, but even on track, power eventually becomes the building block for speed. So we build more strength, more power in the muscles. We turn them into more power type runners. And then when we get into pure speed to the top end speed, it translates very, very well. That's the 6 systems. Now keep in mind, we want to build those fairly equally, right? It depends on the races, right? If we're running a 1500, speed endurance and VO2 max are going to be incredibly important. If we're running a 5K, aerobic threshold is going to be more important. If we're running a marathon, endurance will be more important. It just depends where they all fall in these categories. So, and we'll adjust as we go. And again, remember, we're not training them to be the most possible success coming here in our program. It's what they do at the end of high school, moving on to college. And so we will train them appropriately so they're prepared for high school training. Periodization is a concept of basically creating periods or phases, if you want to say, of training. And I'll go over that really quickly. And the whole concept here is that we want to create kind of these big chunks of time, and that's what periodization basically does. Is you say you take the whole season and you break it up into these phases or these sections. The first one is recovery, believe it or not. What I mean by that is that they were probably for a lot of the returning kids, they were in a season for cross country. Cross country finished, and they took 2 to 3 weeks off with no running whatsoever. Just let them be kids for a while, right, and just enjoy staying up late, playing video games, whatever it was that they were doing. So that was part of the recovery. And that recovery is really important, not just physically, but mentally as well. Then you get into base building phase, which is what we're in right now. The idea is to get to slowly increase the amount of running they do, increase that endurance system that we were talking about earlier on the previous slide. And so we're doing a lot of base building, a lot of just running, right? Little boring, right? Not the most exciting thing in the world, but super important. The wider that base is, the more higher, meaning the more performance you'll get at the end of the season. If that base is super, super skinny, your pyramid gets smaller, right? And so instead of peaking up here, you'll peak somewhere over here. And that's not good, right? We want to peak at the end of the season at the right time, in the right way, in the most effective way. So from base, we go up to straight building phase. This is usually for cross country when we talk about running more hills. Here, we'll kind of supplement that a little bit. But we also start doing speed workouts. Now, we're not doing speed as in speed building phase. These are the faster, shorter intervals, the 400s, the 200s, the 300s. But in the strength building phase, we begin to do the 800s. We begin to do 600s, maybe some 400s, but then a little bit different with less rest in between. We will do the aerobic threshold for Eagle Team, for example. And again, and then we shift into speed building phase. This is usually done 6 weeks out from the competitive postseason. We'll get into very fast intervals, the 400s, 200s, 300s. Longer rest in between intervals so they recover better. And they can put out higher levels of speed in each one of them and really trying to get that top end speed going and the speed endurance going. We'll work into that as we go into the competitive postseason. And then it's a matter of race maintenance. Basically, during that postseason, we can't give them a lot more to do because they need to be well rested for these important races, but we need to maintain that level and peak that level. And in fact, you'll see us run them even less to get more out of them at these big races. And so it's really strange. The practices will actually be shorter right before the big meets than they were, for example, now. So we'll kind of go through this thing where at the beginning they're short because they're not running as much. Then they get really long. Like in the next month, expect practices to go longer. And then they begin to kind of start going down at the end of the season. They'll become shorter. By the end, they'll be relatively short practices. Even the Eagle group will come to practice and do 3 miles, and that's it. But that's the very, very tail end. And then that's when they peak and excel and do very well at races they need to do well. Right, more on this concept here. Principle of progression. This is really basic. So what this means is that by training the human body, right, this is in any sport, you begin to see upticks in performance, improvement, and all of a sudden for improvement actually drops. And the reason why that happens is fatigue, right? You get tired. So when we try to time it correctly so that when we do see that fatigue coming, we take a week that's a lighter week, meaning they recover. They don't stop running, they don't stop exercising, but they run a little less. The body recovers. The body's already used to that routine, and by doing a little less, your body takes a breath, recovers, and then what happens is you get that compensation, meaning the body adjusts. It gives it a chance to say, hey, that was kind of hard those last 3 or 4 weeks. I need to adjust to get stronger. Muscles get stronger, mitochondria builds, fuel storages go up, efficiency goes up, percentage of oxygen goes up. And then again, we start training again, and then again, planned recovery, and then we go keep training. And as this happens, as you notice, performance keeps increasing. If we were to draw a straight line and do this in a row, it wouldn't work. You'd get up to maybe 5 or 6 weeks, and then performance would just sharply drop straight down, either because of injury, illness, or simply just fatigue. So this is kind of the cycles that we do. We do them in like 3-week rotations as opposed to 4 or 5. Some teams do it as low as 2 weeks, but that's the concept of. All right. General workouts and recovery. I kind of talked about this already, but this is the whole thing that you do a training stimulus, meaning you go out and do a workout, whether that's a long run, whether it's a speed workout, whatever it is, they do that. Fatigue sets in, right? So if I was to have them run a hard workout and then the very next minute say, okay, guys, we're going to race a mile, they will be fatigued. They will not get a great time because they're tired and their levels have dropped. That's okay because they go home, they eat a nice meal, take a shower, do their homework, go to sleep, and they begin to recover. They take a day off the next day because we don't have practice. They recover a little more. And then what happens after a period of time is that the body says, that was kind of hard. I need to adjust the body, make some changes to the body to compensate for that training so I can handle it better the next time. And that's what we call supercompensation. Now it goes above the line of performance and the body gets stronger. And then we go through the cycle all over again. You do a workout, you get fatigued, you recover, and then it continues to go up and up and up, but always with that down, recovery portion. Right, linear periodization. This one, it's nice to look at because it'll give you some idea of what we mean by peaking at the end of a season. If you notice in base period, which is again the period that we're in right now, or the phase is right here. It's at the beginning of these lines. And you look at volume. Volume means mileage, right? How much are they running, basically? So it's that kind of dotted line for those dashes. That's at base period, it gets pretty high. We get to like our peak mileage in about 2 to 3 weeks. We should be there. And we kind of hold that there. But as the season gets closer to the end of the competitive phase, that what they call pre-competitive, which will be the USATF races, competitive, which is really the postseason, we begin to drop mileage, right? So that volume drops, that dash line begins to go down. But look what happens to the solid line. That's intensity. That means speed workouts. That means how fast we're running. That begins to go up and up and up. And then they crisscross. We actually focus more on intensity and speed and less on the whole concept of mileage. So at the end, like we mentioned, even Eagle will go home with just running 3 miles, but they'll do some speed workout and make sure their legs are moving fast right before the big meet. All right, a few other items that I wanted to cover, but these aren't just to remind myself. Facebook, one thing on Facebook, 2 things I wanted to point out, but one of them on Facebook I want to point out is obviously get on Facebook if you're not, to kind of the proper use of the post, right? No issues on what people are posting, pictures, all that stuff's great. Feel free to post things, by the way. It's not just for coaches. If you have pictures, put them out there. We love to see those. If you have like an inspirational movie or something you want to share with the rest of the team, put it on there. Obviously, if there's anything inappropriate or questionable, we'll take it down, but I don't foresee that being an issue. But I will say if the post is about, I don't know, picture day, for example, make sure that the conversations underneath that post are about picture day. Right? If the post is about picture day and you ask a question 3 weeks later after picture day and you're asking the question about the next upcoming pizza party, we're probably not even looking at that anymore, much less responding to it, and it just gets very confusing. So if you need to ask a very specific question, just text us. If it's for the whole group, create a brand new post and say, I don't see anything related to this, so hey, when's the pizza party? And we'll respond there, and then that reminds us to put up something related to the pizza party. So just make sure it makes sense where you're putting information on. If it's a very personal thing, like my kid is in the hospital and they're sick, don't post that on there. Just let us know. In fact, don't post anything about kids missing practice on Facebook. That's just kind of what we prefer. Just text us if you need to. On a general note, we don't really need to know your kids won't be there. I mean, if they're going to miss a whole week or something, sure, let us know because we're going to be wondering what's going on. We'll be a little worried. But if they're missing one practice, I mean, prefer that they don't, obviously. But if they are, you don't need to let us know. There's no attendance records or anything like that. If you want to communicate with us because you need to know what they should run on their own, great. Yeah, absolutely. Please do. But Facebook usually not the place for any of that. Send us a text, send us an email. Facebook is really more for general announcements that involve everybody, right? That doesn't. Right, athletic.net. I want to jump out of this one real quick and get you to here. So, and I'm going to go to our homepage here, or not our homepage, but just the regular page. So if you go to athletic.net, so many of you have asked, hey, where are the times for my kids when they ran the last race or the race before that? Or what's my son and their daughter's PR? Some of them I know, but obviously with 75 kids, I don't know them all. So what I do is I look them up here, right? And this is the great thing. We keep all records of all races, including time trials, in athletic.net, and we track this. So just you'll if your kids are going to go into cross country in high school, believe me, you will be living in and out of athletic.net. So good place to get started. You can create an account if you want. They're free. There's the paid accounts, but we don't even use the paid account. I used to, but I'm considering getting it again. But for now, you go in here, do a search, type in Whittier. That usually is enough to come up. We're under Whittier Warriors Track Club. I know now we're like, youth running and so on, but this is our official USATF name. Click on that. This will bring you to our homepage, Whittier Warriors Track Club. This will show our races that we've been in. All this green here shows that these results have been posted. For example, we're going to do this a yellow last chance. That's not till May. So it's on our schedule here. This is not our full schedule because it's only the races that have been added to athletic.net, which is not always the case. But again, if they have the green, that means they're usually in the past and the results have been posted. Immediately after a race, the results don't get posted right away. Some of them are great and within an hour they're up. Others, it's 2 days later and they're still not up. Frustrates me, and I'm sure it frustrates you, but this is where you would look to see. I keep a eye on it. I'll post it on Facebook once we know they're up, or I'll send it out on the Sunday email if they're up by that time. So you can look at individual races, like let's say the last Cal High all-comers meet that we went. Here's the results. And in the results, you can go to let's say, the women's 1600. And you can take a look at the results there. And you can find, go down the list, find the name of your child, look for Whittier Warriors Track Club. Got the age groups over here usually, things like that. You can switch right to men's on that race already from here. Look at the men's results. You can switch the races. Like, let's say we had a kid run the 800. You can switch to the 800 and look for somebody there, right? So that is the last thing I want to show you, and go back really quick, is that you can also see what their PRs are, meaning their personal record, the best time they've ran. You go to records for the team, you go by event, and depending, it looks like 8 around to 400, so he's our only runner in the 400. But besides that, we have the 1600s here. And that's all we've ran so far. When the 5Ks are here, they'll show up here as well. So this is, even though we ran 2 different races, they were both the same race. So whichever time they ran better this season will appear here, and it'll tell you where they ran it, at the Cal High or the La Mirada. They'll have their name, they'll have them ranked on our team only. This is only based on our team. And they'll have their exact times, their official times that they got. And you can go through that there. You can see kind of where they compared to their teammates. You can see, again, what their best time is, if they want to PR at the next race, this is where they go to see what's happening there. What else about athletic.net? Like I said, if they're going to run in high school, they'll have this as well. Their records will kind of follow them. Collegiate, scouts will take a look at all this. Our sport's pretty easy and direct to scout for. It's based on times, so they take a look at times, and they'll be able to kind of look back at their history and how successful and how long they've been running, which is always a good thing. All right, parents. That is it for the parent meeting. I am just thinking in my head if there's anything else that we needed to talk about. I don't think there is. Like I said, we will post this on Facebook, send it on the Sunday email, so that's when you should be seeing this. If you have questions, find the Facebook post, ask the question, hey, Coach, you said this, but this didn't make sense, or hey, Coach, did I understand you correctly that this is what we're doing, or what about this, Coach? There may be things that I forgot to talk about. I'm sure there is. If I have to make a second video, I will. It could be a shorter one, just responding to those questions, or I'll just respond on there, whatever makes the most sense. But parents, again, thank you for all your support and your help. Don't forget, picture day is coming up. If you see this before picture day, it'll make sense. If not, it won't make any sense that I'm reminding you of that. We're hoping all kids can make it. We'll try to get you out of there very quickly, but that way they'll be in the big team picture. Um, we have races coming up. They're going to be for selected, but we'll have one during practice for the kids who don't run the selected races. And then we have the 5K. Sign up early so you get that super, super cheap price. $3 for a 5K is, I've never heard of that before. They get a t-shirt, a medal, everything. So, and sign up yourselves, join us for the run that day. All right, parents, thank you very much. I will see you at practice and have a good rest of your day.